Gizmos and gadgets can provide a unique element to any film project as it gives the actor something to do or carry. Today we'll learn from one builder how some of these props are made. It all starts now on Below the Line.
It's Below the Line with George Peroulas. On tonight's show,
From constructing a 9-foot cell phone to replicating a national park entry sign using styrofoam, my first guest incorporates creative engineering to build props and set pieces for TV commercials, movies, and more. Please welcome from Big Bad Props, Jeff Hamrick. Hey Jeff, how are you?
Good, how are you doing, George?
Good, thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me.
Now, how did you get involved in prop building?
Bad luck. No, just kidding. No, I actually started a long time ago in the artsy-fartsy world. I, straight out of high school, in fact, still in high school, started airbrushing T-shirts at Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. So that was quite an experience. Went from that to painting billboards back when they were actually hand-painted. Believe it or not, they were hand-painted at one time. It wasn't just done by computer. But then it seemed like the natural thing to go from there was to a studio, so I did. Started building things.
Now describe some of the unusual props you've been called about and to create.
Ooh, wow. Well, I recently built an ice cave for an ESPN commercial featuring Carl Edwards. I've been called on to build a gigantic antique gold frame, fried eggs for billboards, a money sucker. That's a good one.
What's that?
It was for Limerick Studios, I believe. They were doing a commercial for Charlotte Metro Credit Union, and they wanted a banker to have basically a giant money vacuum cleaner on his back, and he would go around town sucking up people's extra change and money. So it was kind of a hit on the big banks. They had raised their fees and all. So, but that was an odd one.
Yeah, and I saw a photograph of that huge gold frame. Tell me about how that all came about, and what was it made of, and how do you guys move it, and what was that project about?
It was for Loeffler Ketchum Mountjoy. It's a very large ad agency. It's here in Charlotte. And the client was Simonini Builders. They had a townhome in Myers Park that they wanted to, that was a luxury townhome, very high-end, nice place. And they wanted some help selling it, so they contacted LKM, and they devised a plan to build this gigantic antique gilded gold frame. I got a call from a guy that they had contacted about making it, and he said, I have a client that has this project they want built, but I don't think there's enough time to do it. And this was 2 weeks out before it had to be done. So he said, I think they're willing to pay for it, but there's just literally not enough time to do it. So they contacted me, and I ended up kind of changing the game plan. Instead of making it out of actual metal, I cheated, and I made it out of plywood. But in the end, it turned out perfectly, and we ended up building it and installing it in 5 days.
Wow, that's huge.
Mm-hmm. It was built like an airplane wing, and instead of solid pieces, it was ribs that were the cutaway shape of a picture frame and then wrapped with thin plywood. And then I applied the frilly flowery things to it afterwards, made out of styrofoam, of course. It actually sat right on the edge of the sidewalk, so that when you ride by, you see their townhome through this empty frame. And the little placard at the bottom, a nice little brass placard, said, luxury, townhome, or work of art, you decide. So, and they expected it to only be up for a week or two until they had so many complaints, you know, that they had to take it down. But they didn't get any complaints. It was that good. Now, it ended up staying for several months, and then I think it was donated to an acting place or something. I'm not sure what happened to it. I'd love to have it back.
And what other large objects have you made that seem interesting to put together? I know you had like a huge cell phone replica of The BlackBerry.
Yeah, that was fun. That was years ago. The Nexcom BlackBerry store opened uptown, and it was a project for Red Moon Marketing. Nexcom was one of their clients, but that was quite a project. I carved a life-size, well, I say life-size, it was a gigantic BlackBerry phone out of urethane foam, and the screen was a 42-inch plasma screen. Gives you an idea of how large it was. But that was a display piece in the BlackBerry store uptown for the longest time. And when they did their training seminars and that sort of thing, they would have their information displayed on the screen.
So when did you realize there was a full-time need for these kinds of objects where you opened up your own shop and had people come in to help you?
Well, I've been doing it since, I guess, '89 when I moved to Charlotte and started at a production studio. I went freelance in '97, '98. I guess I'm giving away how old I am. But there was never a shortage of people needing things, and you know, Charlotte's constantly growing. There's more and more studios in town, more movies. Plus, a lot of the things I do are for marketing companies, point-of-purchase displays, lots of tools that they send to clients to get business. So it's just been more and more and more. So I finally decided, you know, maybe I should get a couple of people and like open a legitimate place. So that's what I did.
Yeah, and part of your team includes Alan and Bruce, Dave, and Jordan. How do you
Correct.
guys work together in creating these projects and getting some of these gigantic things put together?
Well, they are not full-time employees, as I'm not busy every single day doing a project. I wish I was, like really, really big, profitable projects. But they come in when I need them. They're always first call. Sometimes I need more than just those guys, but they each have a specific duty or a task that they're good at. Like Dave, he's my technical guru. He does all the electronics and the flashy, pingy things. Jordan's the muscle guy. He's the eye candy. Sorry, Jordan. And Alan, he's been in the business. I think he cut his teeth in theater. So he's just an all-around good designer, builder. Bruce, he's the networker. He's the guy that knows everything about technology there is to know. So we make a pretty good team.
We just mentioned that you also build these items for other industries besides TV and film, marketing companies. What other sorts of calls do you get? What sort of displays and items do people want you to make?
Whew. That's what's unique about Big Bad Props is we do anything and everything. The more unusual, the better. In fact, my tagline is, if we can't create it, God is your only other option. So, but I've done props for, let's see, there was a new tennis shoe that came on the market, and one of my clients, Boone Oakley, hired me to build a container, I guess you'd call it, to send these new tennis shoes to potential clients or whoever they sent them to. And that container was a giant book that had to look like it was really, really, really old. It was called The Prophecy. So that I created these giant books, like thick, big books, and then cut the shape of a tennis shoe out of the pages on the inside. So they used that as their vessel to send these new shoes to their clients. So it's always weird. I've done giant fried eggs for billboards. Seems like it was a giveaway at a grocery store for cookware. And the big thing in outdoor advertising is to change the display. It starts as one thing, and then you get used to seeing that every day on your way home from work. And then the next thing you know, it's changed. It's the same but different. So they had a giant egg on a frying pan on the board for a while, and then the next thing you know, the egg has slipped off the frying pan down onto the walkboard of the sign and is hanging off. So it gets people's attention. Sort of like the cows for Chick-fil-A.
Do you do those?
No, but I'd love to.
Yeah. So basically, Chick-fil-A, he's ready for your next campaign. Purple and white cows. All right. Your team has worked with some of the biggest companies in the world. How do you feel when the phone rings and it's a Fortune 500 company wanting you to help them create? What does that feel like?
Honestly, oh God, oh God, oh God. No, I'm not usually contacted by specific companies. Like I do a lot of work for Coca-Cola, but that's through Red Moon Marketing. Good friend of mine, Jim Bailey, he's their local marketing guy. He handles lots of big companies. But it's usually his company that contacts me for the job. It's not like Mr. Cola himself, you know. But it feels good to do work for big companies, knowing that I'm keeping them big or helping to keep them big.
Is there anything you guys can't build?
I don't know yet. I haven't received the call. But like I said, our logo is, if we can't create it, God's the only other option. So I'm sure one day I'll get stumped, but then I'll just make some calls or get on the Googles.
On the internets.
On the internets and the Googles, yep.
Very good. Still ahead, Jeff explains the process of building props from start to finish and how you can get involved in prop building. We're back in a moment. We're back with Jeff Hamrick with Big Bad Props. Now, Jeff, describe the process of getting the phone call with a project to the finished delivery. How does that work?
Well, usually the client has an idea already of what they want. So it depends on how much of what they... Let me rephrase that. It depends on if they know exactly what they want or if they just have an idea. If they have an idea, then I will put pencil to paper or fingers to keyboard, whatever it takes, to narrow down exactly what that idea is. Then, of course, I'll have to put a price figure to it, make sure it's in line with their budget, and usually it's not. But then I'll have to know a deadline, what they have to spend on it, and then we go from there. And usually the deadline is not nearly enough time. That just seems to be the nature of the beast, but we always make it happen. I haven't missed a deadline yet, let me knock on wood. But yeah, it depends on where it's going. Sometimes it has to be crated and shipped. Other times perhaps it'll have to be delivered at the speedway and set up. And sometimes it has to be torn down. Like recently I built an ice cave for an ESPN commercial with Carl Edwards. A good buddy of mine, Todd Spencer, gave me a call. He was art director on the job, and there were many other elements to the job, so he didn't have time to do this one particular part, which was the ice cave. So he calls me and says, can you do this? And we had, I think it was 2 weeks to do it, and we built it in pieces, took it to the small track in Concord, set it up in the garage area, and then they came, lit it, and Carl Edwards was in this cave shooting for less than an hour, 1 hour, and then it was done. And I took the whole thing to the dump and threw it away.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, which is a really bad part about this business. There's a lot of waste. I mean, they spend tens of thousands of dollars for a prop. They use it for, you know, it ends up being a few seconds on the television, and then it's thrown away. But I did try to do something useful with it. I posted on Facebook, does anybody want it? But what do you do with a giant ice cave, you know? So, and I should clarify, it wasn't really made out of ice. I mean, that would just go away and turn to water.
Yeah, you just put it in the yard and it could recycle in the water and evaporates into the ground.
Yeah, it's a little different when it's plywood and wire and spray foam and canvas. So, but
that's what they needed, and so you had it made, and yep. I've seen it. It looks great.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
Now, talk about actors and props. Have you ever had an actor use one of your complicated, oversized props that they couldn't figure out, and if they break it, how do you deal with it?
That's always a concern. We have to be prepared when when we have a prop that's on set, or it's a background, it's a set piece, whatever, we have to be prepared to fix it, like, right now. Because, I mean, I'm sure you know, with all of the lights, the cameras, the people, the crew, time is money. You know, just a minute costs thousands of dollars. So we have to have touch-up paint, extra pieces, parts, and usually a plan. So, you know, we try to think ahead. If something breaks, what's it going to be? So usually we're prepared. But you asked about an actor with the prop. We created the money sucker that I mentioned earlier for Charlotte Metro Credit Union. It was quite a thing. We shot uptown with a typical old banker fellow with this clear vault vacuum cleaner thing on his back going around sucking up money. So it had to look like the money was actually being sucked into this machine. So we used a remote control airplane propeller or engine, which was a tiny little thing, but the amount of power it produced was amazing. I could not believe it. But it's what actually blew the money around inside of this contraption. And we did use real money. There was some issue of whether we could or couldn't, but the fake money that you can get that you're supposed to use looks really, really fake.
Well, speaking of actors, a lot of you may not know, but Jeff is a very talented comedic actor with great comedic timing. One of my favorite characters is your Daryl Pig character. Tell our viewers about Daryl Pig.
Oh boy, you didn't tell me you were going to ask that, George. Well, a very, very dear friend of mine, Joanne Hawk, who is a very established director, she wrote a movie called Redneck Roots, and she asked me to be one of the characters, which was Daryl Pig, and I played a small-town radio DJ with some issues. He has irritable bowel and Tourette syndrome, so they billed me as a loose cannon from both ends. But it was probably the most fun I've ever had with my clothes on, being Daryl Pig. He would be taught boobies. he would scream out different things, usually not dirty things, but almost dirty things.
Because he has Tourette syndrome.
Right, right. And yeah, I highly encourage everybody to see the movie. And
yeah, it's hilarious.
They can get a copy at redneckroots.com.
Yeah. And Daryl worked at WPIG TV. And give me some squeals.
I do lots of, pardon me, lots of noises, voices. I think I did a rooster crow and several different voices on the radio in the show, where his natural voice, it was real country, and he yelled out like boobies, that kind of thing. But also, while he was on the radio, he would go from hee to, and now the weather. So I tried to play the character as he was a total whack job with the capability of being normal when he tried. But being normal wasn't his normal. Did that make any sense at all?
Yes.
So, definitely a lot of fun.
Well, very good. Well, thank you so much for coming. Wish you all the best in a very busy 2013. And thanks for coming to Below the Line.
Well, thank you. But before I go, I have some gifts for you.
Oh, I'm afraid.
You should be. Where did my gifts go?
Right, folks. A little unprepared
Thank
producer-host moment here.
Well, you pulled the Redneck Roots question. I brought for you a Big Bad Props t-shirt.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you so much.
Even has the cool quote on the back.
Oh, great. You know what? That is awesome because I just threw out my dust rag for cleaning.
Oh!
And I need something new.
And I also brought a prop for you.
Oh! It's brick! It's actually lightweight, folks. Made out of?
Take a wild guess.
Styrofoam.
Yeah. This is what it didn't start out like this, but it starts out as 2-inch foam, and then I cut it to size, drill holes, put the texture, and then paint it. And then, of course, stamp my bigbadprops.com on there.
Well, that's very cool. Well, these are all amazing, and I appreciate it so much.
You're very welcome. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for being on the show. We'll have more coming up with Below the Line right after this. Thanks again to Jeff Hamrick, and thank you for watching. Please contact us with questions, comments, or show ideas. The email address is belowtheline21@gmail.com, and join our fan page on Facebook. We'll see you next time.
For more information, comments, or questions about the show, email us at belowtheline21@gmail.com.